Right, CloudFoundry Foundation Technical Oversight Committee for the 9th of August, space year 2022. Agenda for today then, reviewing some actions from last week. I think Chris wants to talk about CloudFoundry Day 2022. We carried over an action last week to talk about bot accounts. We need to talk about defining what a reviewer is formally, which sounds like it is done, just an oversight about where that definition went. On to any outstanding PRs and then any other business. So actions from last week, we carried this one over because it wasn't urgent. Does anybody feel like it is urgent this week, given that we've got a reasonably busy agenda? Going to take that as a no.
Well, we might want to clarify how we would check on this, because I think I mentioned last week that I briefly tried to figure out how to get access to like what our Travis usage was for the CloudFoundry org, and I wasn't sure even how to do that. But maybe Chris or Ruben or some other folks, if you've looked at that, you might happen to know.
No, I'm not sure.
That's
Me neither.
That's everyone stumped.
Okay. Well, we
Yes,
can take that offline, but yeah, maybe we do want to try and look into that over the next week or so.
Okay, let's move on then. Chris, floor is yours for CloudFoundry Day 2022.
Hey everyone, yeah. So CloudFoundry Day is coming up. Couple things. One is that registration for Kubecon jumps up $300 on Thursday. So I would strongly recommend anyone who's going to come to register today or tomorrow. And I'll send out a final reminder to the community via Slack and mailing list that's the case today. Also, just now on Slack, Jan, TOC alumnus, asked about whether or not CloudFoundry Foundation should reimburse speakers at CloudFoundry Day, since they do have to pay the full amount for Kubecon, which is kind of expensive. I'm open to that idea. You know, it's a little complicated because we don't yet know who those folks are, so they would have to register and then be reimbursed, and I'd probably need to get governing board approval for that. But if that is something that people think we should do, I'm open to that idea. I don't think that's typical for co-located events, but I'm also not opposed to it. We do have the budget annually. We don't necessarily have the budget for what the governing board approved for this event, so but it's something to think about. And then more urgently, I think for the TOC, we need to get the program committee kind of up and running, and a reminder that the CFP is open till August 26th. So those things you need to get some movement on. So for anyone who's interested in being on the program committee and kind of steering the content for this event, please reach out to us. Eric, you'd mentioned you might be interested in that. Anyone else who might want to help out with that, that'd be great. So just, yeah, reach out to Rem and I about that. That's all I've really got. But if anyone has any questions or thoughts on the event, happy to chat about that quickly now.
Yeah, I may not have time to be on the program committee myself, but certainly socialize the idea within the VMware folks too.
Sounds good. Yeah.
So we're collecting, sorry if I'm speaking about someone, we're collecting information through a form. So if you're able to pass that form along and get people to fill that, I think that would work best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be challenging to get somebody from SAP into the program committee because of vacation season. There's hardly anybody in office at the moment.
It's
Even
not
the
a very
Yeah.
the schedule, given the event being on October, the schedule, like having all of this fall in August is not a particularly Europe inclusive feature here. So I'm aware of that. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I could do there.
Yeah, our pitch to everyone is if you want to take a break from vacation, being on the program committee is a great idea.
Any more for any more? Nope. Okay, let us move on. So last week, we began talking about bot accounts within the CloudFoundry GitHub org. Realized that there was a lot to talk about, that we wanted to just take some informal notes and then talk about it this week when we had more people back. Eric has written up his notes already on 386. Has everybody read these ahead of time, or does everybody want a minute to digest first?
I read it. And yeah, there are a few very valid questions.
Yeah, this was just the issue that had occurred to me last week as we've been going through the mechanics of carving out and allowing these separate bot areas within the working group structure, which, you know, is certainly a pattern that people have been adhering to, but just like, oh yeah, we haven't really been clear about what should qualify as a bot account or who should have access to administer it. And then, yeah, I think the thing that I forgot to add to the issue was what the process is for adding or removing a bot. And I would guess that would look similar to like an approver or a lead role or something.
Yeah, storing the credentials is also a challenge. I know it from the CF deployments working group, where we currently move over the concourse, and yeah, it can only be done in a pairing session, and credentials are carefully carried over to the GitHub of the concourse. Is that a good source, and who would then have access to this concourse? There are tons of questions, and that's not well defined. I'm also afraid we are not yet in a position to define here a good process. There's just experience lacking. I mean, there are some setups that are working somehow, so we would need to collect feedback from the different working groups, what they are currently using, and then coming up with a proposal. And I mean, the rules themselves are probably more easy. I mean, we could charge the working group leads at the end of the day with a responsibility for those users and taking care that the credentials are well maintained. It goes hand in hand with the admin access, right, to the repos.
Yeah, I definitely think it makes sense to get the thoughts of all the working groups on that too, and find out what they've been doing or what they would like to do in terms of that management. I think us just making up a bunch of rules and then imposing them is not going to make sense.
Okay, so we ought to formulate then what exactly we want to ask of them, and then get their feedback in here, keep it all in one place. Does this sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Could directly ping all the work group leads.
Do we want to take that offline, or do we want to take some notes on it? Because I don't know if the bullet points you've got here do these sound reasonable as exactly what we want to know, or do we want to refine the questions we want to ask them ahead of time?
If we hadn't defined the life cycle for adding or removing bot accounts, I think that'd be another area that we need to define and that we'd want their input on. So I could add that to the list.
Yeah, I think then with these 4 questions, I think that's enough to think about, and then additional question may come up from the discussion, hopefully.
Okay. Can we note those 4 questions down? I feel like I've lost track of them in my head.
They are in this.
They're the bullet
in the
points
ticket.
at the end of the
okay, right. Sorry.
issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it probably makes sense to keep discussion concentrated there unless there's something particularly sensitive that we don't want written down for whatever reason. I mean, there's that security aspect of this management.
I think what's confusing me is I don't know how a working group lead would answer that first bullet point. It's not really in their gift. We're more asking them, what are you using, not what should you be using?
Well, I mean, maybe like as one example, so like, should we use a bot account that actually corresponds to a human? I think the answer there would be no, we shouldn't. Like these should be like dedicated accounts where there's then that I think starts to lead into some of the other questions. If this isn't a human's account, then other humans or other systems will be storing the credentials for it. So where are those stored and who should have access to them?
I agree that that's probably the correct thing, but it would be good to have the working group leads tell us what they are using, just in case we have a case where people are using things, for example, that are tied to a specific person and they have a good reason for doing that. Or, it's heavily embedded in their workflow and they can't give it up, for example.
I mean, to a certain extent, we can derive or see this information already because bot accounts are used. The existing bot accounts were simply added because the automation provides this feature, even though there was no formal specification about it. And now there are some PRs where, let's say, interesting bot accounts showed up, and that's where this discussion started about. Should we allow bot accounts that are outside of the organization, for instance? Yes, no, maybe.
Anyway, I think we got a good starting point to solicit info from the working group leads and other folks in the groups that know what they're doing with these bot accounts right now.
Okay. Who would like to take this away to go and ping them, or are you happy for me just to ping them and ask them to answer or provide some feedback based on the above? Are we happy that that's sufficient?
I can mention the working group leads on the issue and ask them for their feedback and some information about what they're currently doing.
Okay, thank you.
So feel free to assign that to me.
Have we talked about two-factor authentication and bot accounts?
Oh yeah, that's another good point.
Because I think it's enforced on our org, right? Maybe not.
I'm not sure. I would say
I'd have to
no
check.
if it hasn't changed recently. I think I was part of the CloudFoundry organization without 2FA, and then for some other org, I had to enable it, but I'm not sure anymore. Yeah, but it's a point.
Do you want to add that in on that issue? Just
yeah.
Are we happy to move on then if we know what we're doing with that one? Okay, let's move on. So Sylvester points out that we haven't added an actual definition of reviewer into the roles definitions. Eric says we have got the definition, it's just not in the right file yet. So guessing simple as let's just raise that PR, get it merged, and everybody's happy. No further process needed around that. It seems like it's just an oversight.
Yeah, if you go through this document, you will see then there's a lot of text, and that will make you start thinking about what are the prerequisites for becoming a reviewer. We haven't, that's not that detailed, but for me, a reviewer is the same as a contributor, just with the additional option to get PRs assigned. There are no real further additional rights, so it can be maybe done very short without lots of text.
Okay, I'm happy to wait and go and do that, get my head into that side of things a bit more.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. That'd be great.
Yep.
Okay. Right then, on to outstanding PRs. We've got 325 up first. So this, I think we addressed this last week, but I can't recall what we said on it.
I think
we
it's
write
still
notes on
the
it?
open discussion between Dave and Ruben where this should be located. And
Yeah, I'm just back from vacation, so I'm catching up with email.
all fine. It's not that urgent.
Yeah. Attribute loader has waited this long. It can wait a little bit longer.
Yeah. And if Jochen should be involved, he will be back from 18th or mid of August, something like that. So he is currently in vacation. So, but he won't be able to contribute too much, but just to, yeah, listen to your outcome.
Okay, sounds like that's in hand. 223 and 224 were open things that I think were worth tracking, but Eric's already responded, so we can just skip past those. 262, 375, and 378 can all be merged, I believe. So let's start with 262. Finally.
This one is easily merged, but then what do we do? Because as a consequence, if we merge this one, would be an XPR that removes all teams, right, from the CloudFoundry org. Yeah, no problem. I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, we can make the PR and maybe leave that open for any known exemptions that people want to make.
You mean the PR to do the actual implementation?
Yeah, to remove the teams.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. Okay, so let's merge this one, open a new PR to do the thing then. It is one pending reviewer. Ruben?
What's the number of the PR?
262.
262.
Are we talking about leaving this next PR open for a period of time or indefinitely?
Indefinitely doesn't make sense.
I think a short period of time, again, just to let the reality sink in and see if there's any real objections to doing it.
Okay, I would open the PR and then, yeah, I leave it open, let's say, until next week or.
Okay.
Okay, then I will write that into the PR.
I think we can now merge 262. That is merged. Okay, 375. So we put out a final comment period for it last week. No objections raised since, no comments. Let's go ahead and merge this unless any objections.
I had one. I'm too slow here with clicking and okay. This one has the area bots inside. We should be aware of that. So the technical implementation, it doesn't mean it doesn't require that we use it. But if the RFC specifies such a group, then yeah, it's at least there. But it doesn't contradict the discussion on this other bug. It's the same way as for the others. So my point of view, I'm fine.
No other objections. Okay, let us merge. Uh, 378 is generating teams for the working group area reviewers and bots.
That's
And that was
basically
waiting on the previous one.
exactly. So if you give me a +1, I think I have to rebase it because there was some conflicts, so it cannot be merged right away, but I can do that. Yeah, if you all agree.
Yep.
I would then rebase and merge it. I think there's one PR open for somebody who wants to become a reviewer. So as soon as this one is in, I guess, yeah, there will be questions again. It was from the Bosch team, somebody.
Yeah.
Matthias, yeah.
So I've left approval on that. I guess it wants more of us on top of that. But I don't know of any reason why we can't do it this way. Approve and then rebase and then merge.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I will take care of that one.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the ones that I identified. There's a shed load of them still in the inbox, but they were all quite old. So if anybody has any ones that they want to particularly talk about, now would be the time, I guess.
There are a few rather old tickets like number 8, number 11, number 14, everything that is, let's say, before starting of this year. Maybe we can just close all of them because there was no activity anymore.
I think probably a bunch of these have been addressed also.
Because that makes it easier to go through this project board if you don't see the old ones.
Happy to take an action to go and either close anything that's more than a year old, or if it's less than a year old, just prompt if we don't get a response within a week, just to close it off. Oh, I'm happy to go do that.
Yeah, maybe add a still label or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a few issues in here that are actually kind of clean up things that would probably be good to do at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any in there that in particular people want to address?
I mean, there's ones about, I think there's like a note section maybe down still at the bottom of rules.md that's a little bit messy. I'd have to take a look at that. There was a governance.md document that, again, I think we'd said like we should make sure that everything that's in here is represented elsewhere if we think it's important anymore. And otherwise, like, dissolve that document. I think that there's a few things in here that I think some other community members raised as, again, potentially longer term areas of governance for the whole community. Like this one around, we've had things like the cats kind of de facto defining the behavior of the CFF runtime, but should we have some sort of more API based or conformance based certification? So, we could also close them and see if they come back.
Yeah. Does anybody want to take on the slightly easier ones, tidying up the documents? At least we can get those moved on at least. If not, I'll do it. Cool. Yeah, I will go. So was it 96, 97?
Yeah, if you feel like taking a crack at those, Andy, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll see where I get to next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business? Nope. Cool. Let's close this off inside half an hour again. Getting good at this. Right.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, folks. We will see you all again next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.